Hey there, and welcome again to another Unreal 4 shoot 'em up tutorial. Hey there, so this is just a really quick post video recording. I've already got this video recorded ahead of time, and somebody's mentioned in the comments that I overlooked something whilst creating this originally. So in the BP_game mode where we are saving the score, I've just made a really simple mistake to overlook, and I think when I was dragging something in or typing it, I just chose the wrong type of score. So just here's the problem, and what we're doing is we're setting the score, we're finding out if that is more than or equal to the current top score, and then if it is, for some reason, I've set the score to be score again. And obviously what we wanted to do is if the current score is more than the top score or equal to the current top score, we're just going to reset that to be the top score. So we're going to delete that. We will alt drag in the top score to set that, and then we will just plug these back in over here. So now what we'll do is if the score is beat the top score, then we'll refill that value with the current score. So as I said, really simple. You've probably noticed that as you're going along and made the change yourself, but just in case you didn't, I just happened to miss the mistype that I made there. So I wanted to correct that, and now we'll get back to this video as it was meant to be. So today we are just going to go back to the BPW_HUD class. So again, when we start getting into the fleshing out of the player blueprints, the damage systems and things like that, everything's ready to go, and we'll see some instantaneous feedback on health bars and score. So if we go ahead and go to the BPW_HUD, we will open this up. So if you're new to the widget system, the way that we essentially update the values that we have here is in something called a binding. So if we move over from the designer to the graph tab over here, similar to most other blueprints, what we have here is a graph, which essentially is just a home for the logic that we can drive to update the values and the look of the widget classes. And we bind those to the functions between the variables in the designer and the logic in the graph. So before we get into actually binding anything, what I want to do is just our standard blueprinting stuff. So kind of like the event begin play, what we have here is an event construct in the event graph. It does exactly the same thing. As soon as this widget comes into existence, anything which is driven off of here will be called. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our casts and our variable setting here so that we have references for use later. First thing we want to find is the current game mode. So as always, we're just going to do a cast to BP_game mode. We'll drag off of here. We will do a get game mode check. So we'll make sure that the current game mode in use is the BP_game mode, the one that we've made. And then if that's true, we can right click on that. We'll promote that to variable, and we'll just call this BP_game mode. Okay, nice and easy. So the next thing we want to do is we will drag off of the game mode reference, and we'll do a cast to BP_player. Exactly the same reason. We're going to find out if the current player in use will get the player pawn, and we'll find out if the current player in use is our BP_player. So we'll promote that to variable, and we'll call this BP_player. Okay, so we now have everything that we need to reference later in the blueprint. We'll need to get the current score from the game mode and the current health from the player to drive the bindings that we'll create over here. So back in the designer, if we go to the health bar first of all, the thing that we want to update, we can see that we have a percentage number down here, or on the progress bar, and this is essentially the value in here drives how full this bar is. So that would be 100 health, and that would be 0 health. And you can see this goes from a range of 0 to 1. So we're going to need to do some division a bit later to make sure that if the enemy has more than a value of 0 to 1 as its health parameters, then this will match. But what we want to do first of all is we want to create a binding. This will create a function for us over here, and we can F2 this to rename this, and we'll call this update health. And really all that we want to do is we'll first of all do an isValid check. So we'll find out if the player is currently a valid object. So if the player currently exists and we have a reference to it, then we want to find out what its current health is. So we will get the health value. We also want to get the maximum health value. And quite simply, off of the current health value, we want to do a division. So we will do a float divided by float. We will divide that by the maximum health, and this is just that simple division I mentioned earlier. Because this is a 0 to 1 value, we want to normalize the value here so that we get the correct range returned, and then plug that into the return value. And the way that the bindings will work is this is pretty much run almost like an event taken away. So it's run constantly. We don't need to do anything past this. This will always now be checking against what the current health value is in the BP underscore player, and we'll be doing a division on that, as I said, just to normalize this so that we get this between 0 and 1, and that will now drive the value of this. And in fact, we can test this. So remember, this starts off as a percentage of 0, so if we put this down to 0, in the BP underscore player, remember that in the construction script, we haven't done this yet. We should, at the beginning of this, be setting the current health to be the maximum health, and we haven't. So if we go to the construction script, we'll do that now. So if we go down to set health, and we'll just set the health to be maximum health. So nice and simple. Maximum health doesn't have a value, so make sure that we plug this in with something. We'll make that 100. So we'll give the player 100 health. So that means that health will now be 100 when we start this. So what we should expect is that the blue bar, although we've set this to be 0 in the HUD system, it will update this and fill this with the blue bar itself. So yeah, that's correct. Now if we just go back and double check this, we'll remove this from the construction script. So now health will be 0. And remember, the percentage at 0 will make this the white bar we'll see in the background. So now the health bar is empty. So now we have the health bar updating correctly, and obviously as we get hit by the enemies now, that will carry on updating in the game and the bar will carry on decreasing. And we'll do something very similar. We'll go over to the score text. We will bind this to a new binding. We will just F2 this and call this update score, and we're going to take a very similar approach again. So we want to do an is valid check. If I can pull off of here, we'll do an is valid check. This time we'll find out if the game mode is valid, so if we have a value filled into this correctly. And if we do, we want to get the current score in the game mode. We want to append something to this, and we can't do an append from here, I don't think. We can't do an append from here, so we will drag off of here. In fact, just right click anywhere and type append. So we're just going to add a line of text to the top of this. So the second node will be the score converted into a string, and we'll change A to say score with the colons and a space afterwards. Make sure you put a space there, and then we'll plug that into the return value. So it's unfortunately a little bit messy. What we have here is this is expecting a text value because the UI form for the for text is text. Append, we can only do appends in string values. So this is expecting a string, and then the score is obviously a numerical value which we're turning into a string. So we're just getting a few extra nodes because we're doing an automatic conversion from integer to string and then from string to text. So that's why you're seeing those. But now if we go in, and we can see that the score has remained at 0, but we do have the text as well. So we can just change this to just anything. And we'll see that that is now being driven properly from the HUD system. And likewise, that will kind of show us that this is pulling all of this from the game mode, because we have filled in our game mode score value to start at 0. So this is taking the word that we're adding, appending that to the number that we have in the current score value in the game mode, and printing this out to the HUD. So nice and simple, we now have a fully working HUD system ready for use when we start getting the enemies and the player and everything running properly. So with that done, I will make sure that everything's saved. We'll close those down, and I will leave this video here. As always though, if you've enjoyed this or found it useful, then please do leave a like, and if you know anyone else who'd find this useful, then please do share the video around. If you'd like to be kept up to date with the latest content on the channel, then do hit the subscribe button. And as ever though, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.